Hello, viewers. Tonight, I am going to do something that is somewhat different. This will be another Elden Ring podcast, as I usually make. However, this particular podcast is going to have more to do with gameplay, basically fun. It's especially fun. But this is a video about what you may call role-playing, or what I call an Elden Ring theme playing, because I am firmly convinced that Elden Ring is not a role-playing game. I do not believe that Elden Ring is a role-playing game because you have too little agency. Basically, there are nearly no NPCs to talk to. There are very few NPCs, I will put it that way. Very few NPCs, and the experience is not what I would consider a role-playing game to be like. So, to me, this game is an action game for the most part, and so sometimes I do like to have something of a role-play, you may say. So I call, what I'm doing in this video a theme play. Now, some of you may already know that I sort of have made, or I have been playing with for a very long time, I suppose you might call it an ancestral follower character, a type of roleplay, so to speak. A character that uses the horned bow, and I use the bestial incantations because the reason that is part of my roleplay, so to speak, was because there was a patch in which an invader called Magnus the Beastclaw or something such as that invades our character, or protagonist, or he invades us, right? Now that was an update to sort of allow us to go to Mogwyn's palace early, and basically he was wearing the ancestral follower, the ancestral hunter, attire, and he was using bestial incantations as well, but that is what he was using basically. So to me, what little lore we have, I can add that to it, because it is in the game. So, okay, that character is using bestial incantations, so I can sort of connect that to my own theme play in a lore-friendly way, because if an in-game invader can do it, and be lore, sort of in the game, I myself reckon that, well, if I do it, I can still feel immersed. So, basically, I use bestial incantations, to sort of, as sort of a way to improve the physical damage output of the theme play. And I use the, what type of dagger? The Cinquedia. I use the Cinquedia. That is slashing a damage. And I do not use Spirit Ashes, and I do not use Summons. Now, what I do, and perhaps some of you have realized that I never run off arrows and I never run off FP. That is because I use Sheet Engine and I use infinite FP. Not only is this what you may call a theme play, it is basically what I call a no-HUD theme play. Now, some of you see that I do not have HUD enabled. In other words, I do not have a stamina bar. I do not have a health bar. Alright? For the purposes of this, theme play, I do not use those because, to me, if I'm going to use infinite FP, I need something to balance that out. Basically, I have unlimited AROs and unlimited FP, but I cannot see my health bar or stamina bar. So, in other words, this gives me the added challenge of basically I have to sort of use memory to remember how much stamina I have, how much health I have, as well as which spell, or rather, for this theme play, she only uses incantations. I do not use any Crimson Tears to heal. I use incantations to heal, and I do that in just about every one of my theme plays. So I have to cycle through my incantations with, by memory. I cannot really use I cannot use the HUD as reference, so I have to remember which incantation that I use. If I mix up an incantation, I can get hit. And so, for this theme play, I can only use this armor set, the Ancestral Shaman armor set, so to speak. The name of this particular theme play is the Ancestral Huntress theme play. Now, in regard to lore and story, we could go any direction we want regarding this. I suppose we can go in two directions. We can say that either this is a real ancestral follower, or this is a person who was a tarnished, who lived among the ancestral followers, just like a particular item description says, that was a shield that had thorns on it. Alright? Or this is an actual ancestral follower, and we can sort of size down for reference, because in every Dark Souls game, basically you have these big characters, but you also have these small NPC characters too. So, size sort of is a representation of power in these Dark Souls games oftentimes. So the size really does not mean anything when we're talking about NPC characters. Alright? So I can sort of not really pay attention to that, because that is not really important. For our purpose of the theme play, we can really use any type of, we can do a lot. We can use our imagination, because the game does not provide us enough NPCs and story to really engage ourselves in what we may call, a real role play. We don't have enough agency to really do much. So the only real choice that we have is basically what ending that we get. And basically, that is it. I mean, what choices do you have in Elden Ring, and how can you affect the world? Basically, one of the only things that you can do in Elden Ring is affect how you play the game, and basically choose how you want to play. So, if this is a game in which basically I have to make my own fun, that is fine, because I do the same thing in Skyrim, I do the same thing in Fallout 4. I played Skyrim and Fallout 4 so much that, and that was all, and, what was his name? What is that man's name? That person, the representative for Bethesda. Okay, the man. He said that basically you have to make your own fun in these games, which is a pretty bad thing to say about your own games, Elder Scrolls. But, that is what people did in Elder Scrolls, and frankly, at this point, that is what I do in Elden Ring. You get sick of doing the challenge runs, because the challenge runs are pretty, sometimes I feel as though that is just a little too strict for me. It's just a little too, if you do one challenge run, you get bored of it. And for me, I just wanted to feel as though my character had a how should I say, a place in the environment of the lands between. And so, for me, theme playing is a way I can, you can do it on console too, but you do not have sheet engine or modifications, and so, it's a bit different. Myself, I especially like to use reshade to make my game really dark. If you see the contrast, my game is really dark. There are lens flares. It glows. It's, basically, there's bloom enabled. It looks really good. And one of the reasons it looks so good is because I use reshade, which is post-processing. Post-processing is great for really podcasts, commentary, gameplay. And so I really do like this. I really do like using reshade. But anyhow, back to my discussion about the theme play. One of the most important things in the theme play is, in my opinion, the capability to lose the game. In other words, that goes without saying. If you cannot lose in Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, then the game is no fun. The fun comes from the fact that you can lose, and I would say that is true for just about any game, but it's especially true for Elden Ring and Dark Souls and the FromSoft games. Now, one thing I can say about, my theme playing and, in Elden Ring is that it feels a good deal more satisfying than Skyrim or Fallout 4, because what I can do is, basically, I can develop an unlimited FP playthrough, sort of handicap myself in different ways and make it more of a challenge, such that I can use all of the flashy moves I want, but at the same time I do not have spirit ashes, I do not have summon signs, and so for me, I have to use my imagination. And so the game is still challenging while at the same time allowing me to play in a very creative fashion. And this to me is excellent. Now, some of you, perhaps you have not tried it, and I will say, very unfortunately, if you are playing on console, you cannot really have this experience. However, I would say this as well. You do not really need a high-powered PC to play Elden Ring. Basically, the PC that you play Dark Souls 3 with is the same one that you can use to play Elden Ring. Now, you will need to do some modifications to the program, and if you know which sites to go to, you can download a repacked version of Elden Ring that works just as good as the Steam version. And how do I know that? I am a pirate. I am a pirate. But anyhow, this is exciting. I got sick of playing Elden Ring, for a while. But then I decided, I have to find a way to enjoy this game. I really do. And so, to be honest, I may even just try to play Dark Souls 3 in this way too, where, I just use Sheet Engine. So, to basically tailor my experience. But I will say, the reason I do this in Elden Ring in regard to this theme play, and just using unlimited FP and doing weird things, basically, to sort of make my experience more immersive, is that, for me, I believed, and many of you may agree with me, Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 were faster games than Elden Ring. I think at this point, it is an open secret, and a lot of people are talking about the same thing I am talking about. When Elden Ring was first released, many people had recognized that Elden Ring was slower, and it is slower. Many people had understood that this game really made a heavy use of spells, of sorceries, incantations, basically magic, and as well as weapon arts. So much so that if you wanted to play this game in a good old-fashioned way, where you're relying on your skills, you're ducking in and out, you just want to do melee. You want to feel just hitting into foes, and you just want to take your sword, or your two swords and dual wield and just go, do what you did in Dark Souls 3 and just, play in a very, fast, way where you're just basically, you're dodging, you're rolling in and out, and you're just playing in a very, dynamic fashion. And I used to enjoy that, but although Elden Ring may seem fast, I would say it is not as fast as Dark Souls 3. It is not. And many of us already know it. So the roll has an input delay. There are different movements in this game that have an input delay. Some of the bosses have an input delay, that can really trick you into thinking that you should hit when you should not hit. So basically, what you do in Elden Ring, and many people have recognized this, when we were playing Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, we were going in and out. We were going in and out so fast, and it was enjoyable. The things we did in Dark Souls 3 were crazy. We were fighting two enemies at once, and our roll was so fast, and the controls were so responsive. Those controls were tight, and when we pressed roll, it came out a lot faster than Elden Ring. And I will say that this is regardless of which version you play. Whether you play the PC version, whether you play Elden Ring, whether you play this on the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 or 4, you will recognize that Elden Ring is just a slower game than Dark Souls 3. And some people may think, how can I say that? How can I say such a terrible thing about Elden Ring? I will just simply tell you, people, go back to do some comparison. Go back and play Dark Souls 3 again. Or Bloodborne. Come back, and try to, and let me just say this, play Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne and just do a complete melee playthrough, where you don't do any weapon arts or spells or magic or anything like that, and just play the game and just, dodge and roll and do the things that you do, and then come back to Elden Ring and do the same thing. Do a complete melee playthrough where you're not using weapon arts, and you're just using you're relying on the speed of your weapon, you're relying on your dodge, and see how much more fun you would have when you play Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne. The reason you could do a lot of what you did in Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne was because of the speed of the game. And to some of you, this may seem like some type of foreign concept to some of you, where you're saying there's no way that, Dark Souls 3 is better than Elden Ring in terms of reactiveness, in terms of the controls. Yes, the controls, the game is not as fast. It just simply is not. Your dodge has an input delay. The speed of your character is slower. Some of what the bosses do is ridiculous. Your FP gauge can go down pretty fast. And so, basically in Elden Ring, whereas in the earlier games you had these really responsive controls, this really responsive dodge roll, and you could do a lot with it. Okay? In particular, I'm talking about Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. I'm not talking about Dark Souls 2 and 1. No, I'm talking about Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. Now, Dark Souls 2, for its time, in my opinion, was not, so terrible, but that is a whole nother, discussion to have, to be entirely honest. There was a mod that kind of fixed the roll delay in Dark Souls 2, but Dark Souls 2 it did have a lot of problems in terms of how it felt, and I think in terms of how Elden Ring feels, there's some problems with how, there's some problems with the responsiveness of the controls. I will put it that way. So, basically, this is a very fun theme play. that beast claw is giving you slashing damage. That bestial sling is giving you some strike damage. That Grunk's rock or stone or whatnot is giving you some strike damage and a good push, a good deal of poise damage, so you can sort of break some people's guards with it. Now, for your horned bow, you're going to be able to, for the purposes of this theme play, I decided to use the enchanted shot. You could use the mighty shot as well if you want more of a challenge, or if you just like that one more. That is more of a shot that is very similar to the ones that the ancestral Huntress do. So basically you're sort of combining the concept of the ancestral hunter and as well as the ancestral shaman, who has the ancestral infant's head. Now the ancestral infant's head is really good because the ancestral infant's head will allow you to basically sort of cover the ground and do a area of effect attack, which is pretty good, to be honest, because some of these enemies are going to sometimes they're going to be coming close to you. You have your dagger, you have your bestial incantations, but sometimes it is very useful to have that extra damage on the ground coming from your ancestral infant's head, and you can sort of cover a lot of area with it, and that helps you sort of deal more magic damage. So basically, the good thing about this theme play, in terms of functionality, is that you'll be using physical as well as magic damage. In other words, you have your horned bow, you have your cinquedia. For healing, you could do a Crimson Tears healing, but I prefer to just use incantations. If you have a heal incantation or a great heal incantation, that works well. To be honest, overall, you are not overpowered. You can still lose. As effective as you are, you can still lose, and that is what I like about it. This game, one of the problems I had about the game was that the bosses and just the regular enemies were basically HP sponges. There's no difficulty modification on this playthrough. It is just me, starting out, getting my items with Sheet Engine, using a few scripts, and making, basically cutting off any type of FP requirement. So for your ancestral infant's head, that is an item you can use as many times as you want. I have unlimited arrows, so I can use the bow as many times as I want. Now, there are many challenges trying to hit certain enemies, because you have to remember you cannot use spirit ashes. These are my rules. Now, maybe you can do something different, but as for myself, if I have unlimited FP and unlimited arrows, if I cannot figure out a way to defeat my foe, I consider that to be, I have a limited amount of moves I can do. And I like that, because oftentimes when we play Elden Ring, we sort of use every advantage that we can. And of course, this is a sort of challenge run. Now, what is so very terrifying about it, not terrifying, but sort of surprising, this makes you play with risk. This makes you play with risk when you do not have a HUD. You see, I cannot see how much health I have. And I also cannot see the status bar, so she could be afflicted with rot awfully quickly because, she does not have her, her status is not there. But I would say this as well. For my ancestral follower, I can also use those particular, items that are associated with the ancestral follower the talismans that really give her robustness boosts. A boost to robustness that can protect her against rot and other different, I think those particular talismans that are associated with the ancestral followers, the sort of clarifying horn or whatever it's called, and the other one, the malting amulet or whatever they're called, they sort of improve your status resistance. And I think this armor sort of does so too. Not very much, but that is sort of a theme, with the ancestral followers, that their talismans actually help protect you against some of these status effects. Of course, I have not applied those yet. But nonetheless, as you can see, this status is really going to build up quickly, and I'm going to lose. And I cannot see the HUD, and because of this adds a great deal of challenge. I do like this because it, I never really liked a lot of the challenge runs because you did not, most of the challenge runs you have to sort of play a certain way, and oftentimes you can't play in a way that's that fun. Even in a regular game, I think the fact that the bosses have unlimited FP, it was not such a problem in Dark Souls 3. It was not such a problem in Dark Souls 2 because you were faster. Your dodge in Dark Souls 3 was crazy. Now in Dark Souls 2, the enemies were pretty slow anyway, so there were ways you could get around that. In Elden Ring, the enemies are pretty fast. And so, for me, in my opinion, the roll should have been as fast as Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. It just simply should have. Now, how do most fights in Elden Ring proceed? Basically, it is like Final Fantasy 13. You are there. Your primary goal is to stagger your enemy as fast as you can so you can do as much damage as possible. So you can get a critical hit, so to speak. Excuse me. That is sort of your goal. Here's one of those spirit NPCs. You have to talk to these people to recognize, sort of the state of the world and to really gain a really nuanced understanding of the story. Those are the people I was talking about in one of my Elden Ring podcasts. But anyhow, in this game, I hate to say it, most of what you do is weapon art spam, because the weapon arts are stronger than the incantations and the spells anyway. Okay, there are some weapon arts that, and the sad thing is, Elden Ring, FromSoft will just basically what they will do is, they did this to a lot of weapon arts. They were just nerfing those things, and they still nerf weapon arts. They still do. And a lot of weapon arts have become boring because they nerfed them so much. And I'm thinking, considering how they made this game, what this game is, they even nerf spells. But, to be entirely honest, a lot of the fun of this game has been taken away. It's just like the turtle shield. You remember the turtle shell shield. That used to have 100% physical damage absorption. But of course, it increases your stamina regeneration. And so that was a unique thing. Of course, if you think about a turtle shell, a turtle shell is a pretty good defense, especially one that big. But, FromSoft decided, no, you're not going to have that much fun. We're taking it away. And they literally just decided to get rid of, the effectiveness of that, and they also decided to nerf Barricade Shield, which is a weapon art, but a lot of the weapon arts have been nerfed. But basically the reason people use weapon art so much is because regular attacking is stupid now in this game. Okay, it did not used to be, but it is in this particular game. Because, your enemy can do so much, and it seemed like it was different in Dark Souls 3. As though your enemies were a bit more restricted. Now, in this game, it seems like you are restricted to weapon arts, to these little, you're basically a one-trick pony most of the time. You find a good weapon art, you basically spam it every chance you can get, you use it every chance you can get, and, our regular attacks have been sort of, they're not as effective anymore, Oftentimes, if you're trying to just stagger a foe just with regular attacks, you're just going to get hit. They're just going to take chunks of your health. So at this point, most of the time when I'm in these fights, it's just stagger them as fast as I can. And once I stagger them, okay, I have to hit them. I have to go up to them and sort of do my little visceral attack or critical hit or whatever you would call it. And it is just boring. I remember Dark Souls 3 being faster. I had more fun with Dark Souls 3. Okay, but now, ever since I've been doing the Steam play and I just decided, I have Sheet Engine, I'm going to use it. I'm just going to get rid of this whole problem I'm having with this game and just decide I'm going to have unlimited FP. That is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make my own little role plays, my own little theme plays where I play in a set fashion the way I want, and I feel as though my character really has a place in the world. Whether that be an ancestral follower or just basically, what do you call a hero character or a champion character, with the great axe or something like that. Just play in a way, I just wanted to play in a way in which, I felt as though my character is there, my character fits into the world of the Lands Between, and I can just sort of, be a threat to the bosses while at the same time face a real challenge. Because, for this theme play, there is a lot that you're going to struggle with. Because if you're fighting an enemy such as Malenia without the HUD on, okay, as you can see, I did not do so well against the Rot Dragon. What is his name? Xyx or something? Malenia is going to be a nightmare for this theme play. Basically, one of my only stagger methods is going to be that Rock of Garunk, because I already know those slashing damage techniques, Beast Claw and Garunk's Claw, they're not going to do that much. And I have my little dagger, my Cinquadia, and that's not going to do that much. I'll be rolling away trying to get my heals in, but Malenia is going to be doing Waterfowl Dance. Okay, and I cannot use Spirit Ashes or, or my, what would you call it? Or Summon Signs, but of course I play offline anyway, so, there's no real Summon Sign for Malenia. And that was one problem I had with Elden Ring. In Dark Souls 2 we had plenty of summon signs. In Dark Souls 3 we did not have as many summon signs. In Dark Souls 1, we had a good deal of summon signs in Dark Souls 1, in terms of offline play. Now, the sad thing is that in Elden Ring, they just do not care as much about the story. And I know some people will say, oh, they care about the story. This is great. But, we have fewer NPCs. We have fewer summon signs. Many of the summon signs we get are in random places. It is almost as though, why did they even bother putting summon signs in this game when they have so few? Really? I mean, I remember in what was it? In Dark Souls 3, I think there was even a summon sign for the last boss. Really, if you chose what was the new Londo, Londor ending, if you chose the Londor ending, I think you had a summon sign. So, And even in Dark Souls 2, when you got to the last boss, you know, you had summon signs that you could use. Okay, Dark Souls 2, even when you got to the last boss, you had summon signs. I think they had, what was it, Throne Watcher and whatever, they were the last boss you had to fight. You know, but of course, I do not think you got a summon sign for Nashandra, but you know, you got a summon sign for the Throne Watcher and Throne Defender or whatever they were called. You know, but in Elden Ring, I mean, the summon signs they're in basically what I would say are random places. The amount of summon signs that you get, it does not make much sense, and I think about it and it makes me frustrated, you know, because I'm thinking that really does affect the offline play, because these summon signs should be in such places as to be really lore friendly. In other words, this should be a part of the story. If I go to just any, not any boss, but you know, maybe as many as we had in Dark Souls, at least Dark Souls 3, if not just Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 had plenty of offline summon signs. I do not enjoy playing online. I really do not. And I guess, you know, FromSoft really took the community for granted. They knew the community would accept less. And I hate to say that, it's just the truth. They know the community accepts less. They know the community does not care if they put much story in the game or many NPCs in the game. They figure, hey, you know, you're a FromSoft fan, a FromSoft fanatic. You will love it. You know, yeah, I know we didn't put many NPCs in the game, but that makes it more mysterious. You will love it. You will buy this because you buy every FromSoft game that comes out and you're going to enjoy it. Now me, I bought it on console. I got the repack for free because, you know, that's pirated. And so, you know, for me, hey, I may not even be buying Armored Core 5 because I think, honestly, you know, why should I? I've played Armored Core games ever since I was a kid. Okay, I have been playing Armored Core games, The Eternal Ring, Evergrace, Lost Kingdoms, you know, Lost Kingdoms 2, forget about it. I have been playing FromSoft games, you know. These FromSoft fans and fanatics, they come to my videos, you know, and sometimes I will get dislikes over stupid stuff. Okay, I will literally say, hey, you know, Demon Souls had some things in it that were a lot better than a lot of the games that have come out from FromSoft, like World Tendency. They had good sort of character interactions with Sage Frake and, you know, Uria and, you know, Saint Urbane and a lot of things I could mention. You had Yurt the Silent Chief. You know, how is that controversial to literally give some praise to Dark Souls, to Demon Souls, I mean, and even some praise to original Dark Souls 1. But if you say, hey, these games had some things in them that were a lot better than Elden Ring, you know, you will get some people, you know, they don't like it. They do not like it. They really do not. It is quite terrible, in my opinion, because really, you know, FromSoft could learn something from criticism. The truth is, FromSoft feels as though they do not need to improve their games and sort of go back to the basics that made them great. You know, there were things in a lot of the earlier games that really made FromSoft a good company. Now, FromSoft is taking the online community for granted because they think we don't have to put offline summon signs in the game because you want a challenge anyway. You like this game hard. Why should we put some story-related NPC summon signs there in the game for you? Of course not. You want this game hard. You don't care about summon signs. You want hard. You want hard. You know, you want to suffer. And it's sort of a sadistic sort of way, and you know, Japanese people are weird about that stuff, sadism and masochism, you know. So I'm sure there's some people in the company at FromSoft who really think, yeah, you know, our fans are masochists. You know, and not that these games are terribly hard. It is just that, hey, you know, when that gets in the way of them making a good game with a good deal of NPCs, and, you know, actually cutting stuff out of the story, and even getting rid of voice acted lines and whole plots, you know, whole character dynamics and even different covenants that could have been in the game, you know, people do take a look at the cut content for Elden Ring. I will continue to talk about it because, you know, when I talk about it, there are some people, you see, they don't like that I'm saying this. Some people do not like that I'm saying that Elden Ring's cut content would have made the game better because they want to think of Elden Ring as the perfect game. And these people are just die-hard fanatics. You know, fanaticism is something cult-like. Fanaticism is something that I am against. I will never be a fan. I am just what you call an aficionado, a connoisseur. You know, those are more educated terms for people who know how to enjoy something without becoming a fanatic over it. That is what an aficionado is. And I'm probably really slurring that word, but that is what a person like that is. That is what I consider myself to be. You know, that allows me to really enjoy my media and criticize it as much as I want, talk about what is good about it. You know, Elden Ring is really beautiful, and that is another reason why I recommend you players to do what I call no HUD playthrough. On console it is awfully hard because you cannot see health and stamina and FP. But you know, that helps me because, you know, it allows me to really see how beautiful this game is. It is really beautiful, especially with some reshade. And for me, I used to play these games on console a lot. I had played Dark Souls 3. I had played nearly all of that on console. But then I had decided, I said, you know, I want to get the PC version of Dark Souls 3. And I had some different ideas. I said I wanted to, you know, basically see how good it could look. And so for me, the graphics on the console version of Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, they basically don't look much different, whether you're playing the PS4 version on PlayStation 5 or, you know, even the PS5 version, and you're comparing that to the PC version. Basically, what I like about the PC version is the reshade. Okay, so I think all of these games are just wonderful to play on PC because you can have that reshade and it makes the game look so much better. These are really beautiful games. Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 2, and Elden Ring, and even Bloodborne. Because that is a Sony exclusive, I cannot really do the reshade on that. But, you know, for the most part, for me, I would say that, you know, the no HUD playthrough is basically the way I play this game now. I do not like seeing the health gauge and other gauges. So, you know, this is a must for me. You know, maybe you will like it. Now, you know, I could say some things about just how, you know, tedious, you know, it is to just play this game without, you know, as many NPCs as, you know, Dark Souls 3. I used to love, you know, just playing Dark Souls 3 over and over again because, you know, for me, the storylines were more, for one thing, you could end the game with NPCs that actually lived, survived. I know that's sort of a foreign concept to some of you people who've only played Elden Ring, but it used to be you used to play these games like Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. And you used to win the game with a sort of hopeful feeling because you know people like Carla are alive. You know, people like, people like Cornix is alive, you know, other people have survived. I did not know, you know, I mean, basically, you had NPCs who wouldn't die. Okay, you could even save an NPC. So, I forget the name of that particular NPC, you know, the thief. You know, the thief who, you know, in Dark Souls 3, he was a thief. You could get him to go out and steal stuff for you. Well, in other words, you could get patches to save him. Okay? And that goes to show that the developers at FromSoft knew that there were certain NPCs that you, the player, might want to keep alive, and you might want to do certain things to keep them alive. Well, in Elden Ring, they just decided, hey, this game is about death. Everything is about death. Everyone has to die. You know, the age has to end. The age of Pisces or the Elden Beast has to end. You have to put it to rest. And you have to kill the big fish, and everything has to die, and the NPCs have to die. You know, we have to, you know, cut out that covenant, or rather, we have to cut out that covenant that we were going to have called the Redeemers, you know. And so the game is really dreary. The NPCs, just about any NPC storyline you have except for Nephi, or Neph, whatever her name is, you know, Nepheli gets to live. But she can die too. But you see, it's just about every character that we meet dies. I mean, and there's certain characters who are villains, like Ronnie, who started the whole, you know, the whole shattering, you know, due to her actions. She gets to live. You cannot kill her. But so many other people, they just die. You will reach the end of their quest line, and they're gonna die. You know, Maleficent, or whatever her name, is going to die. You know, the people who basically do not die are a bunch of bastards. Okay? You know, and for me, in my opinion, Ronnie is just terrible, in my opinion. As a person, if I were to meet this woman in real life, I would want nothing to do with her. I would say, forget this. Here's some of that famous input reading. Making the lion basically, you know, yeah, you're not going to hit that thing. You're not going to hit that thing with anything. Why did you even dare to do a projectile-based playthrough? Oh, you thought you were going to do a little role play? You thought you were going to be an archer? You thought you were going to do a spell-based playthrough? Too bad. The lion can dodge everything. It does, you know, he reads your inputs. You know, this is lazy design, because there's no way you're going to hit him. Okay, but hey, some of us like to do the little ranged playthrough stuff. Okay, and some people say, you're casual, you're trying to do a ranged playthrough. Well, that's part of the theme play, that's part of the role play. She's supposed to be using her bow, okay? And, you know, you cannot, you know, some of the people who basically make excuses for everything, you're not going to be able to convince them of anything. You know, of course, you know, some people have said, hey, the line should be fast. And, you know, maybe that is true. Maybe this line is just so fast because, you know, maybe it is a good idea to make the lion input read. But, you know, if you're at a certain distance, there's no way you're going to hit this lion. Okay? Which you would think, okay, he's very difficult to face if you just have something like a dagger. So, you know, you would think, okay, I should at least be able to hit this enemy at a distance. But no, you know, it's just like that. Okay, I mean, I will just put it this way. The melee combat is not as enjoyable as Dark Souls 3 melee, because I felt faster in that game. Okay, so, you know, I can make my own fun, but I really have to sort of do a lot of creative things. Okay? Not only that, I mean, when I just think about the NPCs in general, it is my experience in Dark Souls. When I think about Dark Souls, the first thing I can think about are the NPCs and the meaningful storyline that I had in that game. That it doth not matter if I'm thinking about Dark Souls 1, 2, or 3. I can sort of reminisce and have some sweet memories about some of the NPCs in that game, like Sigmire. Okay? Sigmire, and, I think it's Dark Souls 1, and I think they had a similar Sigvard or whatever in Dark Souls 3. But in this game, when I think about the game, the first thing I think about is the gameplay. Because basically, my experience with the NPCs is just, it feels so shallow. It seemeth so, I mean, it is beautiful. This is one of the most, I think this game is more beautiful than any game I have played. And that is a really big boast. I would think before this game, probably one of the most beautiful games I had played would be Dragon's Dogma. And probably in third place, I would say Kingdoms of Amalur. Kingdoms of Amalur was pretty because of the color scheme. That was a game I did not even have to use reshade on. It looked that pretty and colorful. For Elden Ring, I like to emphasize the colors, and I like to basically use more. I like it to have more darkness in it, basically, because I like to do playthroughs where I have to rely on the torch. Okay? That to me is quite enjoyable. I also like some lens flare. I like bloom. I like heavy contrasts between, darkness and light. I think if it's nighttime, it should look like nighttime. Now, that was something Dragon's Dogma did really well. Dragon's Dogma, when it was nighttime, it was pitch black. It was pitch black in Dragon's Dogma. Okay, and who knows what is going to be done in Dragon's Dogma 2 to make that game look really good. Oh, that is going to look great, I'm sure of it. But as for myself, I have not really found any other serious game to play except Elden Ring. But when I think about, when I sort of think on it, the only thing I can think about is gameplay. When I think about what I like about Elden Ring, it is not the NPCs and it's not the storylines. It is very hard to feel a lasting connection with NPCs when most of them die. When most of the NPCs in the game die, it is very difficult to really enjoy your experience. When you think back on, a game like Dark Souls 2, which, Majula was excellent, your NPC, friends are there in Majula, you can talk to the blacksmith, that was a cooler blacksmith. The blacksmith in Elden Ring is depressing. I mean, this lizard man is depressing. It's like, I'm here, I have a chain on my foot, I gotta make a weapon to kill a god, so you can kill the Elden beast, so you can end the age of Pisces, because America wants to end it, and establish her new order, and you do realize I keep saying the age of Pisces because that is what it is. That is what it is. Now, if some of you want to know what the age of Pisces is, it has to do with the age of a fish. You can do your own research about that, people. You really can. Some of you have been wondering, hey, why is the Elden Beast a fish? Why would they make a fish? Okay, why would they make a cosmic fish? It is, this game has to do with astrology. This game has to do with stars. This game has to do with, space. Astrology has a fish, and that fish is called Pisces. Okay? Now, I will simply point you in the direction. You can do a Google search, and you can come to your own conclusions. Okay? But, as an experience, this game, it just does not feel as cozy, as comfortable as Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 3 or even Dark Souls 1. Now, out of all 3 Dark Souls games, I would say that my least favorite was Dark Souls 3 because I like my experience with NPCs and I like comfortable areas. And for me, the original Firelink Shrine and Majula were really great. I mean, in Dark Souls 3's Firelink Shrine, we're just sitting there, basically in a puddle of water. Okay, I mean, it's a nasty looking place. Okay, it does not look that good. It's a graveyard, there's water in the shrine, it's dank, it's nasty, I bet it smells bad. Those are the things I think about when I'm in dark. I mean, it had a really sad sort of song in it, and I'm thinking, okay, basically it feels like Miyazaki and the FromSoft development team just decided, hey, we don't want to make any of these games anymore. We're gonna make Firelink Shrine as depressing as just depressing. And they really did that. And so for me, I mean, I sort of felt it. You feel it every time you play Dark Souls 3. That is one thing I can say about Dark Souls 3 that I did not like. It was not so much that Dark Souls 3 was more depressing than Elden Ring, because it was not. But I think it was pretty depressing. And so when I compare that to, Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, there were some good things, that could happen. Okay, there was some hope left. And I think in Dark Souls 3, there's basically no hope. In Bloodborne has the H.P. Lovecraft type of aesthetic, in it. And so, of course, that is going to be depressing. And so the best ending is for you basically to get out and not become a slug, not to become some type of subhuman creature. Some people may disagree, but I would not like to be a slug. Eventually there's going to be a hunter that, kills, our character who becomes a giant slug. Okay, but hey, I guess you enjoy it, while you were basically a slug god or whatnot, an eldritch, H.P. Lovecraftian type of deity or entity or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Bloodborne was pretty crazy. Just about all of the NPC characters died, but you did have, you still had NPC characters that would talk to you and say very interesting things and have interesting conversations with you that felt more substantial to me than the ones we have in Elden Ring. I mean, there's something about Elden Ring that's just especially depressing, especially in regard to the NPCs. There just is. It's just as though you feel as though, okay, here we go again. More depression than ever. And for me, that does not feel so very good. And when you're trying to role play, when you're trying to have a theme play experience, like I do, I really want to feel as though I'm part of the world, but that's awfully hard to do when just about every character dies. Maleficent dies, basically, Dee dies, Thea dies, okay, who else? Who else dies? That guy Rajier dies. This game is all about death. It's all about death. And you see, when I saw the description for the four-toed fowl-foot and them saying, okay, 3 is an unlucky number in the lands between. Some of you probably thought, 3 is an unlucky number. Well, that doesn't mean anything. 3 for the 3 fingers. No, in Asian numerology, 4 is the number of death. And they said 4 was the lucky number. I said, okay, 4, the number of death is lucky. I get it. This game, yeah, I understand it. And of course, the death is the death of Pisces. The death is the death of, that age. Now, what is the age of Pisces? The age of Pisces, and this is the definition that New Age people give for it. The age of Pisces is the age of the fish, the age of Jesus Christ. Okay, I've said this many times, I will continue to say it, because it is the truth. So you can come to your own conclusions about all of that, and you can do your own research. Now, that is most definitely what the fish represents. But anyhow, it is an RPG that, I have to say, I felt as though if you have that many NPCs dying, it is good at least for there to be more NPCs to talk to and interact with, because a lot of us in our playthroughs, we're not talking to all of the NPCs. It's a long distance to travel between all of these NPCs, and it's not like in Dark Souls 3 where you could just, do a fast playthrough and you could talk to all of them. A lot of them, you're going to be teleporting all over the place with these sites of grace and going to different places, and you're going to have to do a lot of intentional stuff to find these NPCs. So much so that Elden Ring, had a patch added to it by the FromSoft team in which they gave us hints to tell us where certain NPCs were. You know that you've messed up. You know that you've made your game very bare bones when you literally have to give hints to where the NPCs are, because the NPCs are that hard to find. That to me is a failure on FromSoft's part. And even Miyazaki had apologized about the functionality of the game and how it wasn't as good as they had wanted it to be. And yet, the sad thing is, FromSoft fanatics, the FromSoft faithful, a lot of people will not criticize the game. And it has me going back to games like Demon Souls and just sort of enjoying myself, because it makes me appreciate those games more than it ever has been, than I ever have, because there were things in those games that were, in my opinion, they were just better. There were things that I really enjoyed about those games. But theme playing, as I said, maybe it will help you enjoy your game more. Okay? What you need for it is Sheet Engine. You are going to need to go to Scripts Player. You're going to have to sort of customize the game to your liking. You can also use the Sheet Engine to give your character certain items and sort of start off with certain items, like I have done with my, ancestral Huntress character. Okay. So, it might be fun. This was a nice change of pace to do this video. I will be revealing more theme plays, more role plays, so to speak. I also will be writing about this on the forum. For some of you to basically have some more details and some more information about this particular character, about how I use her, to have some more fun in the Lands Between, because the Lands Between has gotten boring to me, and so at this point, I want to role play, but it feels impossible for me to do a role play, and so this helped me. Maybe you'll enjoy it, maybe not. But as I said, this is quite a beautiful game. That no HUD playthrough is something that some of you may want to try. Just look at that. Look at that beautiful, that beautiful sky. Exactly like Evergrace. So, FromSoft finally did it. They really sort of, lived up to, that sort of standard that they had set in Evergrace, and, they really made it so much more beautiful. This is so great. Now, some of you may not know what I'm talking about, but, if you want to know why I keep talking about Evergrace so much, do some research about Evergrace. Look at some videos about it. Really beautiful game. The music was pretty cool too. But yes, I want to end this video with a little scene here that is going to come up very soon. Some of you may have already seen it, but it's the sunset. The sunsets look so great. This is really a nice, scenic game. Oftentimes in this game, I really do not even notice the sun, but here, at least in this area, you can actually see the sun. You can see the moon. Goodness, this game looks beautiful. But that sunset is just absolutely beautiful. That sunset is just absolutely stunning. Now, I'm going to come down here and look at the sun with my telescope. People, I tell you, if you have PC, put some reshade on your game. Put some reshade on your game. I like reshade more than anything. I remember when I used to play Skyrim, I used to like EMB. But I think reshade has come far, it has become far better than EMB could ever be, really. The things that you can do with reshade now are crazy. The lens flares, the bloom, the colors, it makes the colors pop. It makes the game dark and beautiful and colorful, and it is really good. It is really good. Now, right here, I'm going to take that telescope and I'm going to look at that sun. Look at how beautiful that is. This really is a beautiful game. And if there's one thing I can say about it, it really is beautiful. Regardless of the lack of NPCs, regardless of the input delay, regardless of, everything else, they really did make a very beautiful environment. But a game, just because a game has a beautiful environment does not make it, very good, unfortunately. And so, but at the same time, it's, just like Skyrim. Just like Skyrim, I remember the man's name now, Todd Howard. He used to say, you have to make your own fun in the games, which was an embarrassment to say, because that means your games are not, they're not fun enough. People have to make their own fun, and you have to do the same thing in Elden Ring. Okay, for me, I like a variety of NPC quest lines, but the NPC quest lines in Elden Ring, they seem pretty boring to me, and so I have to do things like this, like theme plays, cutting the HUD off, really making a beautiful playthrough, just so I can get my money's worth and just really experience it. And I would say I have gotten my money's worth, but, at this point, I am more concerned with role-playing than anything else. I really am. So, goodness, that octopus was kind of hard to kill with just my bow. It was kind of hard to kill that octopus with just my bow. And it's what I do is I don't get even though I get the items in Cheat Engine, I have to still level them up with regular, what do you call them? I forget the name, Dragon Stones or whatever. I have to use the regular whatever they are called. I'm thinking about Titanite shards. Oh goodness, that brings back memories. It really does. you know, my goodness. But anyhow, people, I hope you enjoy this theme play. Maybe you can use it. You know, maybe you want to play like this. You know, maybe you want to, you know, take some of my advice. But this has been quite enjoyable. So may you be blessed and farewell. Okay? Yeah.